JJM Leadership Foundation. JJM Leadership. JJM Leadership. JJM Leadership Foundation.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, friends. My name is Dr. Stanley Maphosa. I lead an organization called ABC, All Believers in Christ, and I'm the president of that organization. I'm also an author of books, Christian books, leadership books. I'm also a gospel musician. I'm also an executive in a non-profit organization, a science diplomat, and a disaster management professional. I would like you to follow the page JJM Leadership Foundation. I would like you to tag your friends. I would like you to invite your friends. I would like you to comment on the issues that we are raising here. And I'm going to be discussing briefly with you what I call ethical leadership. And I argue in this discussion today that ethical leadership is one of the most critical leadership styles or leadership systems that need to be in place in our country, because our country is affected by two major things: lack of ethics and lack of morality. If we put together leaders and we are able to have leaders that are ethical and moral, then we would have started solving one of the problems that this country is having. Let me define my terms quickly and then come to some examples and we close. Ethics talks about prescribed standards of right and wrong, good and evil, while also integrity talks about lived standards. There's something that's prescribed, there's something that's lived. Integrity is lived standards of right and wrong, good and evil. So that's the difference. And integrity talks about, integration between what you do when you are alone and what you do when you are with others, when you are away of others and you are in the presence of others at night and during the day. These things integrate. You are the same person. You are not schizophrenic, that you do the other thing when you are on your own, and when you are with others, you are a different person altogether. And we're looking for leaders that have integrity and ethics, ethical leadership. People that know how to differentiate between good and bad, right and wrong. And they can stand for what is good, never mind what. Those are the people that are ethical. And we're discussing here from a Christian or biblical point of view. And therefore the Bible becomes our standard. And then we can quote some few verses here and there. When you look at the whole Bible from Genesis up to Revelation, you'll discover how much of ethics, how much of morality is described for all leaders. And I'll give you some few examples here. That the Bible talks about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And those are the words of Jesus. When he first of all says, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Then afterwards he says the second commandment is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. That simply means that as leaders, in loving neighbors, in loving those that we lead, we need to do that ethically. And ethical leadership really is that which is upright and beyond what the Pharisees and what the leaders of the law, the teachers of the law are doing. So we as Christian leaders in different sections of society, whether from family setup, from church setup, civil society, government, wherever you are leading, private company, you need to be leading far, far differently and above what non-believers are doing. And that's what ethical leadership is talking about. From the book of Proverbs, Psalms, and even 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13, we find Paul also defining how we should love ethically and how ethics should manifest itself in our lives, especially when we are leaders. And integrity is doing the right thing, is having a pure heart that allows the inner beauty to control the outward actions, and that's integrity. Without wasting much of your time with all the definitions and that, I'd like you to take you straight to one example of a leader who is called Samuel. Samuel addressed the whole crowd, all Israelites, and he said in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 12 verse 1 to 12, verse 1 to 4, 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 1 to 4, he says to them, I'll read these words. He says to them, I have listened to everything that you have said to me, and I have sent a king over you. Now you have a king over you. As for me, I'm old and gray, and my sons are here with you. They can testify. That's what he was meaning there. I've been your leader from my youth until this day. Here I stand. I testify against me in the presence of the Lord and his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Stealing. Whose donkey have I taken? Stealing. Whom have I oppressed? Oppression. And from whose hand have I taken a bribe to shut my eyes? So he says, I have not bribed, I have not cheated, I have not stolen. And here are my sons, they can testify before the anointed. Here are the anointed, they can testify. And here is the whole congregation of Israel. And I wonder today, who amongst the leaders can be so ethical to say that now, or to say that when they are about to die, when they are sick in their deathbed, and say, I have walked upright and ethical before you. I've done all that you have said I should do, including those that are in the political arena that campaign and make so many promises during the election time, and they deliver nothing during the delivery time. So Samuel holds himself accountable before the Israelites by uttering these words after he has led Israel for decades. He says, I am trustworthy. I was faithful. I was trustworthy, especially when it comes to dealing with other fellow human beings. The second example is an example of Jethro. Jethro is the father-in-law to Moses. And he comes now and he finds his son-in-law Moses is busy, judging people, doing all things as a leader. And he says, no, fellow, please delegate. He teaches Moses one of the leadership principles that is called delegation. I've always said to people, some of these leadership lessons and some of these leadership things that you learn in college and university were stolen from the Bible. And these people did not acknowledge that they took from the Bible. So Moses was the first teacher of delegation. And he says, when you delegate to leaders, elect these kind of leaders. He gives a qualification of ethical leaders, which I'm describing today. That ethical leaders, according to Jethro, are those men that fear God, are those men that, men of truth, not men of lies, are those men who are trustworthy men, and men that hate dishonesty and who also hate covetousness. He says, appoint them to be leaders of 10, of 50, of 100, of thousands. He gives 4 levels of leadership. And Jesus one day said, if you are faithful on the little, if you are faithful when you are leading 10, God will promote you to be the leader of 1,000. We can all be leaders of thousands and millions of people. But sometimes the reason why we don't grow into those spaces is because we fail to be ethical leaders. And now Jethro says, choose ethical leaders and appoint them to be in charge of people in these different levels. And I challenge leaders to be ethical and to be just like these people that Jethro told Moses to choose to be part of his delegation, to be part of his team as he was leading the children of Israel in the wilderness. Let me conclude this thing quickly, that when you want to entrench integrity in your leadership team, you must be the first one as a leader to demonstrate leadership. Don't expect your leaders, your elders, your committee, your board, your whatever group of people that are around you to be ethical when you are not ethical yourself. So the first thing that you need to do when you want to entrench ethical standards and ethical leadership in your team, number one, is to be transparent to yourself and accountable to your congregation or to your company or to your organization. Be transparent to it. Put transparent systems that include you as part of that group. Secondly, organize accountability forums where you bring in duty bearers to explain progress and challenges to the right owners. Who are the right owners? The people. In other words, you need to have a time when you come to before the people and you explain and you give a report. In some organizations, they call it an annual general meeting, where it's not a conference where you are not preaching, but you are telling them, here are the books, here is what we got, here is what we used it for, here is what is remaining. If in the political arena, we need to be using the church space to be inviting politicians, councillors, mayors, so that they can give an account of those promises that I talked about earlier and tell the people. So these accountability forums must be in place in the church. Number three, we must learn to follow the rule of the law and constitutionalism. As leaders, be exemplary to follow constitutionalism and the rule of the law and not break it, and also enforce that to your leaders so that they are ethical, and be clear that criminals and culprits are going to be punished, because punishment is part and parcel of administering justice. The last one is to establish a vetting system, a system that vets anyone that wants to be in the leadership position. We have leaders that are in leadership positions that have criminal records. Some have abused children and they abused women, and we just put them into leadership. We don't just choose because this person is gifted or this person is skilled. So there should be something that vets those that are aspiring to be in leadership. And you see, when you read from the books of Paul in Timothy and Titus, where he puts a criteria that if you want to be a leader, these are the things that an ethical leader must have. And the final one, I said final, this is the final, we must be able to sign integrity commitments accords, to say, this is what I promise you. I'm an ethical leader. You must hold me accountable to this ethical standard. These are I am unashamedly ethical, and these are the standards that I'm writing. They are up there. If you see me doing this, please hold me accountable. And if we do that, this country will never be the same again. We will improve at all levels of leadership because of ethical leadership. May God bless you. Please like the page, subscribe to the page, follow the page, share with others. Many people want to hear this voice, want to hear this message, want to hear this teaching that is found in this particular page. And more is following, and more has already happened with other leaders that did it before me. May God bless you. Thank you so much, Pastor Mdau and your leadership team. God bless you.